Good morning and welcome to MMU News with Stephen Railston and my lovely co-presenter, Leah Crompton.
Our top stories this morning.
A new mental health centre is opening in Manchester for students.
100 years on, we take a look at this year's commemorations of the First World War.
We'll join the MMU rugby team to find out how they're getting on.
And finally, today marks 5 years since the death of Nelson Mandela. We take a look back at his legacy.
But first this morning, a new mental health centre is opening for the students in Manchester. With university services under pressure and some unable to cope, we sent our reporter Aisha Zackaria to find out more about the current issue.
This is Grace, a 21-year-old student from Manchester who is recovering from mental health issues.
As a student, I didn't find there was enough mental health services available. I'm really hoping this new mental health centre will kind of support students and support people.
1 in 5 students suffer from mental health issues and over 85% are aged 16 to 25 years old. In 2019, Greater Manchester will be the first city in the country to open a mental health centre for higher education students. The Greater Manchester Health and Social Care Partnership has set up the centre with the regional universities to provide treatment for students.
So I'm really hoping that this new mental health centre is able to catch students that have more serious and even life-threatening problems.
Kate is a student support tutor at Manchester Metropolitan University who has a degree in sociology and criminology.
It's bringing together the institutions around the area, working together to make sure it benefits all the students in the area rather than us having to work separately. As I say, it provides a more uniformed approach, it ensures maximum coverage, but it also means that the universities aren't under as much pressure.
The centre will be funded by charities and the student unions of the universities with the extra support of core partners. As well as the centre opening, students also have the option to access virtual clinics online to gain help. Aisha Zackaria, MMU News, Manchester Metropolitan.
A few weeks ago, the country came together to mark 100 years since the end of the First World War. We sent out our reporter Ross Farmer to find out more.
We're here by the Cenotaph in St Peter's Square, the centre of remembrance in Manchester every 11th of November. However, this year was different, as 2018 marks 100 years since the end of the First World War. The Great War had a huge impact on Britain, in particular Manchester, where almost 24,000 men perished in the trenches according to Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Being the first mechanised war with gas attacks, tanks and machine guns, the effects of war were brought home, thus changing the way the public viewed war, which is something that has stayed with the British public since. We spoke to historian Gervais Phillips to ask why Manchester remembers.
For Manchester in particular, because like all British cities, the war hit Manchester hard. We spent a great many of our young men to fight in it, and many of families and many civilians in Manchester, of course, were enmeshed in that. Not just the casualties at the front, but there was a major munitions explosion in Ashton-under-Lyne.
Out in Salford Quays at the Imperial War Museum North is the Poppy Wave exhibition. Diane Lees, Director General of IWM, said upon installation, IWM is proud to be hosting Wave on the final stop of its journey around the UK. Over the course of the First World War centenary, Wave and Weeping Window have played an invaluable role in connecting the public with a conflict that has now passed out of living memory. Although these processions and installations are only temporary signs of remembrance, one thing is for certain: Manchester will always remember. Ross Farmer, MMU News, St Peter's Square.
Staying with World War I now, we are joined by John Keighren from the Royal British Legion. Thanks for joining us today, John.
Good morning.
Just ask you a quick question to start off with. The 100-year anniversary, why is it such a big deal in Manchester?
I think it's a big deal in Manchester because Manchester is a city which has a large armed forces community. And you can see that from the numbers of people who turned up for the Remembrance Day procession this year, as they do every year in fairness. But yeah, it was a special year with it being the centenary. Clearly there was more significance about this year, and the Royal British Legion this year took the opportunity really to say thank you to those, not only those who served during the First World War, but also those Commonwealth soldiers from right around the globe. It was a global conflict, remember, so an opportunity to thank them, but also to thank those who stayed at home and kept the home fires burning and made sure the country ticked over. So it was quite a unique commemoration this year.
And what did the Royal British Legion do to celebrate the 100-year anniversary in Manchester?
There was a number of activities in Manchester that the Legion undertook, and one of the great things this year was the way that our sports clubs really got behind the Poppy Appeal and behind the remembrance activities. City and United both had minute silences. Both clubs lost 15 players between them in the First World War, and you've got to remember professional footballers were sent out to fight. Stockport County, they unveiled a plaque. They had 13 professional players who lost their lives during the First World War. The Rugby Football League, we had a shirt launch at the Imperial War Museum actually. So those are a number of activities. We also had involvement with the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association, who helped us out with the Poppy Appeal and with Manchester Poppy Day as well. So a raft of activities, but of course culminating in that terrific procession that you saw on the 11th.
And how important do you think it is to remember?
I think it's become even more important to remember now. There are no soldiers left from that particular conflict, and there's nobody with a living memory of what went on in the First World War. So I think we've now got to work as the Royal British Legion, as the guardians of remembrance. We've got to work even harder now to make sure that that everything that happened during that time is kept alive, because it changed lives. It touched everybody's lives. There were children who grew up through the shadow of battle, grew up with their fathers either absent or lost, so it's hugely important that we remember it.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for that, John. Moving on to sport now. It's been a big year for the MMU rugby team, with the lads going unbeaten just until recently. We sent our sports correspondent, Keighren to see what team makes the team tick.
We're here at Platt Lane, home of MMU Rugby, to take a look at the team's secret to success in recent weeks. They currently sit top of Northern Division 1A after being promoted from Northern Division 2A last season. Here, we'll talk to the coaches and take a good look at the key components behind this winning side. MMU Rugby is thriving. The team lost their first game in over a year to Newcastle last week, but after 5 games played, they are top of the league on 21 points. The success comes off the back of a unique pre-season, which saw the lads visit rural Budapest in Hungary at their Olympic training centre. But the trip has certainly been effective, and I spoke to Rob Jones to get his say on the team.
Ultimately, you know, I'm a big believer if we get the first team right, the rest will follow. Yeah. So forgive me, but we do put a bit more focus into that, but we should. Yeah, it's more the same. Obviously, we had one blip up at Newcastle, tough place to go, long trip. But you know, ultimately, could have won that. Perhaps should have won that. We'll look forward to them down here. High recruitment, good recruitment, quality recruitment, and quality time together. We had a bigger pre-season this year than we ever have done. We had a month pre-season training, sort of 3-4 times a week. Pre-season tour to Hungary, which helped. So yeah, just getting to know one another.
We said we want promotion and a cup win because we feel they're both within our grasp, and it potentially is a University of Manchester MMU final for the cup.
It's not going to be plain sailing. It's not been plain sailing so far. You know, we're top of the league, but we're not promoted. Even if we win this league, it's a playoff. It's not a promotion. So it's really tough.
So there you have it. The team are hoping to emulate the same success as last year. Let's hope they do. Ciaran Taylor, MMU News.
Today marks 5 years since the death of one of the most significant leaders of our time, Nelson Mandela. I went to meet Jessie Manar from South Africa to speak to her about the late president. Hi, I'm Leah Crompton for MMU News, and today we are marking the 5th anniversary of the death of Nelson Mandela, South Africa's first black president. We spoke to Jessie Manar to find out her views on the greatest leader.
There were some kids in my school that were crying when he died. He played a big role in South Africa helping us get past the racial segregation. He played a big part in that, so when he died it was obviously very sad. His peacekeeping ways is definitely, it helped us a lot.
I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant.
He was very influential. He impacted a lot of families, and he still has an impact today on a lot of families. My parents like him. Obviously, they agree with me. They stood for the races shouldn't be apart. That's what they believed. So as the Queen is important to you guys, that's Nelson Mandela to us. It is important to keep his legacy alive. Nelson Mandela actually once said that it always seems impossible until it's done, and I feel like that's impacted my life because moving from South Africa to Manchester seemed like such an unreachable dream, but here I am studying my degree. I believe he's a role model to the younger generation, yes. I believe they follow his ideals. Most of them follow his ideals, and most of them aspire to be just like him. If you can stay in prison for 27 years and come out and just be a peacekeeper, that's definitely something to aspire to be. Everyone was like, oh my God, he's released, now we should uprise, we should kill all the white people, whatever, and he's like, no, I want to live in peace now, I want to live all together now, let's move on, let's all be happy.
One thing is for sure, Nelson Mandela will never be forgotten. And finally this morning, we will join our social media producer, Oliver Plews, who has a quick roundup on all of the day's news on social media. Over to you, Oliver.
Thanks, Steve. Obviously today being the day that he passed away, the tributes are rolling in about Nelson Mandela. Another big story is an assault that happened at a nightclub in Manchester where the bouncers had attacked a young man. The breaking news about this story is that their licence has been suspended today. The next story is Matthew Hedges, the student that got kidnapped in the UAE. He was told to steal documents from the Foreign Office and spy on the UK. The next top story is the former Chelsea and United Chief Executive Peter Keighren is in talks to buy Newcastle United. This comes after a year of struggles after the last bid fell through. Thanks, that's all I got now time for. Back to you.
Thank you, Ollie, and that was MMU News for this morning.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Take care.